Hey guys, what's going on? We're doing another Heroes Unlimited conversion. This time we are tackling Blanka from the Street Fighter series. So, quick origin about Blanka. He was a child when his plane crashed into the Amazon rainforest after it was hit by lightning. The lightning supposedly mutated his body, so we're making him a mutant. So for Blanka's mutant physiology, we gave him the mutant traits of his trademark green skin and orange hair, his teeth for his bite attack, and then we gave him his large hands and claws, a mutant trait. Appearance-wise, he does also have claws on his feet, but they don't do any additional damage. His mutant powers include animal abilities, giving him the powers of a big cat. So he has natural skills such as prowling and climbing. He also has extraordinary vision thanks to his night vision, so giving him the ability to see at night using ambient light. He has extraordinary leaping thanks to that power. And also he can control felines, whether it's the domestic cat or predatory cats. In this case, based on his level, 2d4 plus 9. And that kind of reflects how his background origin in the game itself was like he was raised by animals, so you know, that makes sense. Like, okay, animals are able to raise him as a kid. And then we also gave him his energy explosion, specifically electrical field, and thanks to Heroes Unlimited, he actually has an increased range versus the video game and the series. Here, he can actually increase it up to 28-foot range if he needs, and it'll protect him from things like firearms, projectile attacks, as well as, while it's active, making him immune to electricity, but if he's not got it on, then electricity can still hurt him. There's also just an FYI in the book. It mentions it protects him from energy, which I can see on one hand if it was like a solid force field, but then it literally contradicts itself right afterwards saying energy attacks still do full damage. So I'm assuming it's a typo and they didn't mean it protects him from energy, because realistically it's an electrical field, and while I can see it protecting him from some forms of energy, at the same time it shouldn't protect him from all forms of energy. So I just dropped it. So in this case, it doesn't give him any protection. So FYI, if you want to change it, go for it. That's, you know, your take. Do what you want. And then his final ability is we gave him extraordinary physical prowess, which makes sense considering he's like one of the more agile characters in the game itself, as well as like in the various franchises. Whether you're going from the comic books from like, what is it, Malibu Comics to IDW. Skill-wise, we gave him street school, because he's not exactly that skilled as far as we've seen. And FYI, his hand-to-hand, we gave him wild. The game itself mentions he has capoeira, but there's really nothing capoeira that's reflected in the series throughout its history, whether it's in comic books, the video games. Like, you know, like they just literally gave him that, like, because originally his character was in Brazil, but we don't really see it reflected. So I ended up giving him hand-to-hand wild, which made more sense. And hand-to-hand wild itself is from Rifter. It's basically skill that's given to characters that are like raised in the wild or are like barbarians. It gives you an interesting bonus where it's like if people don't know hand-to-hand wild, they suffer a penalty. And I thought that'd be a great trait for him to have fighting other people, because if they don't know how to fight them, they get penalties. And in this case, it's a -2 penalty to their strike, parry, and dodge. And hand-to-hand wild itself is found in Rifter 40 if you're interested. I later did go back through that Rifter, and I'm like, damn, there was actually an OCC that probably would have worked really great for Blanka, and that was the Wild Man, where basically they're raised in the wild. But at the time when I made this character, I was just sticking Heroes Unlimited, so I started him with Street School. Hand-to-hand wild does have a stipulation where you cannot learn any other form of hand-to-hand combat, including some of the skills that are already in the various books. So, for example, you can't take the Tai Chi exercise version, you can't take boxing, you can't take wrestling. So those are things to keep in mind. It doesn't mention anything about weapon proficiencies, and, you know, realistically, like, weapon proficiencies can go from coordinated training, katas, to just knowing how to use a weapon primarily, and that's kind of what I went with in this case. So in this case, I gave him weapon improvisation. Basically, you can pick up anything to use it as a weapon. The hindsight that said weapon will break after like 1 to 3 rounds of usage. In this case, the skill actually does mention that it breaks after 1d4 minus 1 round. So literally, the weapon can break after your first attack, which I'm guessing is what the minus 1 round comes in if you roll a 1. Versus, you know, oh, it lasts 3 rounds. If you roll a 4 and a 1d4 minus 1, then you get a 3. So it's like, okay, it lasts the weapon can be used for 45 seconds before it finally falls apart, you know? And that, I think that fit considering he was raised in the jungle. Like, he's just, you know, if he's not using his strength or he's not using his claws, especially when he was younger, he probably just grabbed a stick to fight off a panther or fight off a crocodile or something. I gave him animal husbandry, basically the ability for him to kind of like reach out to animals nearby. Of course, there is the stipulation for the skill itself that it's halved for wild animals, so that's why you have 2 percentiles. You have 80%, and then you have 40% for wild animals. I gave him imitate voices impersonation because I thought it made sense as far as him living in the jungle, imitating animal calls, especially when he's trying to hunt. And then we gave him ventriloquism, again, giving him ability to kind of hunt, kind of like maybe deceive animals by throwing his voice, throwing his noises away from him, so distract him so he can come in for the kill or, you know, evade a predator. We gave him a couple of languages, which in this case I kind of stuck to languages that are common to the Amazon. Especially like Brazil, so you have Portuguese, but then we have a lot of the native languages like Tupi and Old Tupi, and I hope I'm saying those right. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I gave him land navigation from the wilderness skills, basically so he can, you know, traverse the landscape recognizing landmarks. Wilderness survival, obviously, because he was raised in the wild. I gave him tailing for tracking animals. Well, tailing more is for, you know, tracking people in the villages and stuff, but that's like kind of later reflected in his career. Swimming, because Amazon rainforest has a lot of waterways. Hunting, that should be self-explanatory, although in this case I did make a note not to give him any sort of weaponry skills, because hunting itself in the book gives you bolt action rifle, or in some cases I even replace it with archery, but in his case, given his background, he never had access to that, so he doesn't get either. So FYI, but hey, if you want to give him one of those weapon skills, go for it. Athletics, self-explanatory. Dude's agile as fuck, living in the jungle. If you see the video game play, he's jumping off the walls, he's doing somersaults, backflips, all that stuff. Makes sense to give him at least athletics. Especially in this case, since we're going by the book, he doesn't have access to gymnastics or acrobatics because those are scholastic skills. It makes sense. Although I do make a note, in my games itself, I do allow characters to take scholastic skills as secondary skills, but it comes at twice the cost of the skill. So, you know, if you take, say, boxing as a secondary skill, it costs you 2 skills instead of 1 scholastic skill. So basically, either at character creation, you're losing 2 secondary skills, or you're losing one of the 2 you get later on, like you know, 3rd, 6th, 9th, 12th, 15th level, something like that. And then to make it easy, we gave him English. We also gave him Brazilian Sign Language, because, you know, maybe he's run into some of the village elders and they're speaking sign languages, using sign language instead, and he's not really confident himself in his own voice. As far as his level, his attributes, those are all randomly rolled. His age has been increased. At the time of his introduction to Street Fighter II, given the birth date that we know for the character based on Capcom's own information, he was born in 1966, so he was 25 years old at the time of Street Fighter II's release. We also know his blood type is B. Under hand-to-hand wild, he would normally have a leap attack, and for that we got rid of his leap attack and we replaced it with his drop kick, which is one of his signature moves in the game. You do have his body block tackle, which is basically we're using that to kind of reflect his somersault ball thing, because there's really nothing in the weapon katas or martial art katas or anything like that really reflects that. But I think just making it a body block tackle is fine. At the very bottom of the character sheet, we have notes, so it's just like some things that are filled in. For example, we do know originally when Blanka was being designed, his character was supposed to be African, origin, like before they had him set in the jungles of Brazil, of the Amazon rainforest. He was originally supposed to be raised in the jungles of Africa, raised by a lion, and his name was supposed to originally be Anabebe. We do know his real name is Jimmy, or James. And that's at the end of Street Fighter 2. When you beat the game with him, you get his mother coming on screen, saying she recognized him from the fights based on his anklet bracelets. There was something that she gave them. There was something she gave him as a child, which kind of doesn't make sense because it fits his ankles, but whatever. Blanka's surname is unknown, his family name, but I do have a guess that it, like my theory is, I think it was Barranca. Or I hope I'm saying that right, but it's a Spanish surname. It's probably the only thing he could repeat as a child of a head injury after the plane crash, and the natives that he encountered probably just assumed he was trying to say Blanka. Here's my take on Blanka for Heroes Unlimited, and the PDF is down in the description, so check it out and download. Enjoy. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversion, and I'll check you guys next time. Take care, like, comment, and subscribe.
Jimmy, you have company.
What company?
That's right. These folks saw the article about you and wanted to meet you in person.
Me?
Well, Jimmy, looks like we finally made some friends. Why don't you bring some fruit for our guests? I'll go put some tea on.